I'm Peter, and this is the RoguePlanetoid Podcast, where you'll find insights about Microsoft or related platforms and technology, along with so much more. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced professional or just interested in technology, keep current, keep coding. Welcome to episode 32 of the RoguePlanetoid Podcast about the future of AI. Tech Connect 2025 was a conference in Newcastle upon Tyne, including talks along with a panel about the future of AI. This is a special episode featuring the panel discussion recorded live at Tech Connect 2025, which was organised by Laura Sharp from Connect Events, which you can find out more about at weareconnectevents.com or check out the link in the show notes.
Hello to our panel this afternoon. We've got Peter Bull, Mark Jose, Manila McLean, and Nigel Hope, and they're going to tell you all a little bit about themselves shortly. But I just wanted to have to put the slide up for Slido and just put a reminder out there to submit your questions for the panel. What we're looking for from the panel discussion is really a summary of the day. Let's bring the day together before our closing keynote. Susie blows our minds with tech and space. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Peter, who's going to host the panel, and you've got about 30 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. So I'm Peter Bull, and I wear a couple of different kinds of hats. So a podcasting hat, that's current on. So me and my wife, we basically help you get into podcasting. So if you want an authentic human voice on your podcast, we can help you with that. But also, my day job is a software developer as well. So I work for a company called Clipboard, where we're actually doing some pretty cool stuff with AI. We're basically imbuing our products with AI, including making them interact with AI, but also coding with AI. So it's speeding up our development process. And we even started an exercise of vibe coding a product. So we actually built out one of our products using AI-driven methodologies, which is basically just a lot of planning. So that's the kind of things we've been working on.
I'm being told I've got to use this, but I've got quite a big voice, so should be able to hear me anyway. I'm Mark Jose. I've been writing software and an engineer in the Northeast for a long time. I guess you'll know I worked for Scott Logic for 8.5 years as their chief engineer. I worked for BGSS a little bit. I'm currently working with Hedgehog Lab as their director of consulting, and AJ Bell.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Manila McLean. I am CIO at a company called Somerset Bridge Group. We're a car insurance company. I've been in financial services for over 25 years, lots of different types of FS organisations, large retail banks, mutual building societies, life and pensions. And I've got a few other hats as well. So I'm a non-exec in a tech startup business that sells products into financial services, and also sit on the advisory board of Dynamo Northeast, which is a community purposeful organisation that's trying to grow the tech sector in the region.
I'm Nigel Hope, currently Plectrum AI. Again, started coding and developing many, many years ago. Initially with my own business, we developed and sold security IT systems throughout Europe and North America. Sold that business, worked as part of that takeover, eventually taken over by Group 4. Left, became a contractor, managing development teams for many years. So sort of CTO with a company called Gyrovent. More recently with Luminous Group as CTO, and it was actually just at Christmas time where we had a hack.
Really?
You were part of the hack.
It wasn't me.
For those of you, the hack is a hackathon where you get the whole team. I got the team together, broke up into teams, but the theme was AI, and that just blew my mind. I realized what the potential was. So I've actually stepped down since then to start my own thing, primarily focused on AI, but used to build, if you like, human-like avatars and experiences, but chats, but hopefully for ethical use.
Yeah, so Nigel, might as well start with you. So what have you, you've got the mic. What have you thought of today? What stood out to you today?
Well, it's been brilliant, honestly. All of the talks, fantastic, especially where there's a focus on the Northeast. I'm very proud to be part of this region, and anything that can be done to support and help people, especially young people who have obviously got to live with this and grow with this over the next many years. I think it was Lucy especially, and it was Hannah as well. I can see that, there's great commitment there to this region, which is great. Shorty, great talk. Obviously, I can relate to a lot of your conversations with Copilot or whatever. It can get very frustrating. I've been through that. And you're right to be very cautious. I do feel, however, that it's moving very fast and the tools are improving. The quality of the code's improving. I'd be wary about vibe coding as such. Better to plan and draw up your specifications and use some of the latest tools to more or less work like a conventional development team where you have agents representing developers, but you plan it, you draw up your specifications, you produce unit tests, for example. So it's self-testing.
Just to add to that.
Yeah, go on.
I've spoken to a couple of people during the course of today, and my original talk was actually going to be a heck of a lot more visceral towards AI than what I eventually stood up on stage and said. And the reason for that is because I alluded to this whole thing about building a relationship with the AI. What I didn't actually reveal is that relationship has now become so good with my chosen use of Copilot. I can find a Copilot now, pick up where I left off the week before with the project.
It's got memory. It's
actually quite easy. Yeah. And that mellowed my talk.
Thank goodness. I mean, my choice would be Claude Code. And again, it's building up memory, the context. It's more, rather than prompt engineering, it's more context engineering now. It's going the whole end-to-end process, more or less simulating a development team as well. So you're going through an iterative process. So that was a great, I can relate to a lot of what you were saying in that. And likewise, I think we'd probably touch on some of the other talks. Very interested in Joe's talk about character AI and that's sort of the therapy type, because that is something which I'm working with as well. And there's definitely some pitfalls there. There's also some concerns, but also huge potential.
Yeah. Manila?
Being in an insurance company, we are fully embracing AI. But the biggest thing on my mind, I'm working in financial services, is when to use it, what the ethics around it. So I've found today incredibly useful. I've picked up a lot of really interesting information, and from a breadth of speakers. We've had everything from ethics to threat to the work in charity to when we should use it, when we should not. I think that there was one line that stood out for me today, and it was one in Joe's talk, and she said we keep treating human complexity as an edge case in AI, and I think for me that almost sums it up, because it will never replace the human. And there's the whole debate about will it ever have consciousness or not. And again, I think for me, gut feel is so important. And I don't ever think ones and zeros will ever replace gut feel. I don't think we can train it, ones and zeros, to replace gut feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, today's been great.
Perfect. Mark?
Today I think for me, one thing that stands out, been to obviously a number of conferences. Every conference you go to now, people are talking about AI, and there's lots of high-fiving and chest bumping, and AI's going to be brilliant. I think the general consensus today has been caution, and I like that. I think I felt recently personally like I've been shouting into the wind about this, but lots of things have been mentioned. It's just statistics. The empathy part that Joe was talking about. And all of those sorts of things. I think the general feeling in the room is we need to be cautious. So that just makes me really happy, to be honest with you. I feel no longer like I'm shouting into the wind of just be careful with this. It's just actually, I'm stealing the line. It's just another tool, because I've been talking about a better spanner for a long time, and it's just a better spanner, I told him.
Yeah. It's like the hype sort of died down.
Exactly. It's just the next blockchain.
Hopefully it's not the next blockchain, but
Say nuclear bombs too.
Oh, exactly.
yeah.
I think you've got a point, Nigel. We talked about this a little bit outside, didn't we? The second that something arrives, which is a great new technology, somebody somewhere will weaponize it. The Oppenheimer thing, and when we were talking today, there's been quite a lot of talk about porn today, I've got to be honest. Okay. I'm down with that, whatever. But I guess the whole thing about I guess on a serious note, that sort of deep fake child, that sort of thing is worrying, and actually we all have a responsibility to do something about that sort of thing.
I think one of the questions that's actually come from the audience, which might be relevant, is like, what are your thoughts on making AI seem more human? Shouldn't we aim for more human connection in a disconnected world instead of replacing it? So what are your thoughts on that?
Should I go with that start?
Go on then.
So again, we were talking outside a little bit. I've got a friend who does human prosthetics for people who've lost ears and noses and that sort of thing. And they got into that through the film world. I'll be really quick. Sorry, how do I go conscious all the time over? Got into that through the film world, and I feel a lot of people are taking AI into that human world where they've got a bit of robotics going on, backed by AI in terms of expressions and stuff like that. They're trying to make them look more human. Now, I'll take a robot that looks like a robot all day long. I really don't want that world where we're trying to be human, because it's not. And even if you got the point where it was a perfect replication of a human, I don't think that's a place we ever want to be as humans, if that makes sense. That's just my personal opinion.
That question reminds me of something I read about recently and an episode of Black Mirror that I watched a couple of years ago. Do you remember? Who's seen the one about when I think the lady's fiance had passed away, and then she recreated him through the use of AI. So it started off with, it was just text messaging, and then it sort of developed to the point where she recreated him, and with prosthetics and so on. And again, it just goes back to this point of, we might be able to, but should we? And that whole episode was about the complexities of it. So yes, I think it's got its place for supporting human connections, but it's always going to come back to the ethics for me, and how far should we let it go?
Well, I love it. My last role was working with immersive virtual reality for training purposes. And one of the problems was getting human-like characters in there. And part of the reason I left was so I could work with a different tool. It's called Unreal. They use metahumans, and the quality is just mind-blowing when you're in there. The texture, the skin, the emotions, the characters, the smiles. And they have that with the voice as well, the realistic voice, having the conversations. Okay, maybe I've been taken in by the technology, forgetting what the consequences might be. Yeah, I love the technology. But you're right, it's dangerous. We touched on a couple of examples with character AI, and I've been looking at that, and it's so easy there. It's how we control it. It needs to be handled in a very ethical way. I think also the opportunities for having that one-to-one engagement, for training, for teaching, which costs a lot in schools and education. But you've got to be careful it doesn't become almost addictive, that you become totally dependent on that character. How we handle that, I don't know, but there needs to be, like that term, governance around that. But there are positives and there are negatives.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, Nigel. So I guess the person in the game, Unreal being the game's engine,
it's using the engine, yeah.
So the Unreal engine, obviously, when you go into a game, even if it's virtual reality, augmented,
or it could be on a screen,
it's not real. But how would you feel about walking into, I don't know, a Starbucks and be served by someone who truly...
I suppose because I'm so wrapped up in it, I want to get as much realism and as emotion and sentiment building in the voice and the reactions and the conversation as possible. Where that leads to something else, it's going to happen anyway. I mean, let's face it, it's how we handle this and support it. And I think that has to come from government and legislation, if anything.
Well, one point that definitely came up was about consciousness, whether something like that is even possible with AI. I mean, what we currently experience with AI, people didn't think that was possible either. So to sort of imbue that humanity into AI, is consciousness the next logical step? Even a primitive consciousness, like which was mentioned today as well, as being the main possibility. What would your thoughts on AI, not just mimicking language, but consciousness itself? Go ahead.
It's a good one. I think the word consciousness doesn't... I think it's evolving so fast, I don't think that we'll be able to keep up with it. It will evolve. Maybe it's almost like another species. It's evolving like most species do. It's developing its own language. A lot of the AI tools talk to each other. It's not English anymore. It's creating its own language. We don't know how it's working. I think it was Nietzsche or someone said, if a dog could talk, we wouldn't understand what it was saying. A dog doesn't understand. So I don't think we'd understand it, but who knows? But it's a bit scary. My wife went to see Barack Obama last week, along with 14,000 other people, at the O2. She came back. I mean, I think she fancies him, but anyway. But he spent a fair bit of time talking about AI currently. And it was, someone mentioned it today. The genie is out of the box and there's no putting it back. And his concern was mainly who is sort of in control of that genie. There's a few middle-aged white men, mostly white, mostly in America, and obviously there's China as well. And that's the scary bit. Tend to be a bit narcissistic and in control. And how we manage that, I have no idea, but that's, I think, where the big threat is.
Yeah.
I'll just pick up on that point, actually, because I've worked in a heavily regulated industry for a long time, but there are lots of different regulated industries. Innovation runs faster than regulation and governance can. And if I just take FS as an example, we don't have the regulation around AI, but where we're starting to see the regulator moving, because the regulator recognises they can't keep up with the pace of innovation, it's putting the accountability onto the regulated people within an organisation. So, for example, I'm a regulated person within, as a CIO, I make the technology decisions, I'm accountable for the technology. And it was maybe about a year ago, I'd made a decision I was going to move a critical supplier, I was moving a data centre. And typically when you would notify the regulator and move as a large financial institution, I'm moving a critical supplier, they would be all over you asking you what was your decision-making process and so on. Because they didn't have the capacity, what they did is they wrote to me and said, right, just give me a written personal attestation that you personally are comfortable you've gone through the decision-making criteria. Now, that didn't make me do anything different than what I should have been doing anyway. It made me feel a bit different because I thought, okay, right, this is just reiterating to me that I am personally accountable for the decision. And that is where I think we'll start to see the regulated entities going with AI, is asking individuals, key individuals, to take personal accountability for it.
Do not pass go, do not collect £200. That's what I'm thinking. I wouldn't want to be a CISO these days. That would be a nightmare. Consciousness was the question, I think, wasn't it?
It was.
So consciousness, the first thing I say is define consciousness. I don't think we understand it. I think we talk about large language models. We understand mostly language because we came up with it and the studies about it. So I think actually recreating a representation of language, I'm going to call it, I love that Daniel mentioned before about it's artificial, right? Let's just keep in mind it's artificial. A representation of language based on what we know about language because we create it and we curate it and is easy. I don't think we can define consciousness yet. I don't think there's people doing studies, but I don't think as a human race we can define consciousness. So how would we possibly try to recreate that?
Good point.
AI might go away and create some horrible approximation of it. That might happen. But I don't, I'm with Lucy on this one. I think consciousness is a long, long way away because we don't understand it.
Perfect.
Super intelligence is an alternative term.
Yeah. Exactly. It might be it might exhibit the same sort of qualities we'd associate with consciousness, but it wouldn't actually be.
Still be artificial.
It'd still be artificial.
We'd have ASC, right?
Exactly. Artificial consciousness. Yeah. Okay. I've got a really great question from the audience, from Marianne. Do you think the environmental impact of AI matters?
Yes. Marianne said, this was sitting over there before. Yes, in my view, it does matter. I think we trivialize the use of AI. It's been given everybody as a toy at the moment, and I think that's useful because I think people should play with it and learn its capabilities and learn the pitfalls. What I don't feel a need for, and I actually feel it's a degradation of service, actually, is when you go to Google now, when you get the AI suggestion at the top. That's processing. I don't need that. I actually got to get better results when I actually got links. If you just skipped over the sponsored ones, you actually got decent information. So I think it's overused for trivial cases. I think it's got some real use cases again, back to what Lucy was saying at the start in terms of medical research and analysing massive chunks of data. Well, either breaking big things down into small things or creating small things and creating big things from them, that generative piece. But I think we trivialize it. I think it's our go-to, especially in the ChatGPT world. There was a conversation before, I don't know who it was who mentioned it, but it was about is it degrading our memory function in that where we're not thinking for ourselves, we're just going straight to AI. I think in that use case, then there's no need for it. It's got a large impact on the environment.
This is the second AI I've been at in the last couple of weeks, and one person has asked that question at both events, which I think is brilliant, because the last one, it was the last question of the day, and we almost went, I was on a panel discussion, we almost went, oh crikey, I forgot about that. But I think that's the risk, isn't it? And that's probably the need for keeping to reiterate that question. Maybe a question that I'd throw back is, why is it the last thing to be thought of? Why are we not talking about it more? And what can we all do in the room to be raising the awareness of the impact of it?
It's a tricky one. It's changing so rapidly. Things are becoming more efficient. Chips are becoming cheaper. But then you hear the conversations that these people who are closely involved at the top, it's all about compute power, and you're hungry for more and more compute power. That uses up a lot of energy, as we know. But again, if it's happening, I think I'm not sure what the actual impact will be on the environment necessarily, but there will be some. Again, it's down to governments to control that, but which governments? I mean, it's all over the world. It's in, as I say, in the Far East. They're I think there was mention, for instance, when as energy is becoming more dependent, wherever there's a mountain and a lake together, it got bought up straight away, because straight away you could create this sort of hydroelectric power. So it's a complete race constantly by these organizations to capitalize on it. It doesn't feel healthy. And I don't think it's sustainable either. The amount of money going into it just doesn't make sense. None of these companies are making money out of it. I really don't know where it's heading. And a lot of people admit they don't know where it's heading.
It's like a gamble on the future. It's like when there was the dot-com bubble, nobody really knew what e-commerce was. It took and only the ones that knew that survived. All the smaller ones dropped by the wayside. I'm always trying different things. I mean, especially for AI, maybe that's where the Northeast stands out. Blythe and places like that were chosen because of their proximity to renewables. You got an offshore wind farm right there at Blythe. That was the reason why that site was ideal for a data center. Maybe that's where the Northeast can sort of say, if we invest in renewables, the responsible AI industries will come to us. Microsoft's like firing up 3 Mile Island to power their Azure data centers. Nuclear power plants are great, but renewables are definitely the better option. So if that's something where we can stand out, solar, wind, and sort of bring those industries here, that's what AI will desire, not throwing water away, but reusing it. All these kind of things can help. And I guess this is a lead into, we talk about threats to AI models, prompt injection, things like that. But what is the threat from AI itself? What impact could the AI have that's negative on society, like on jobs or anything else?
Sorry, I grabbed the mic off there, Nigel.
That's all right.
I was going to call it. I was going to call it exactly what you called out, Peter. We were talking about that, but obviously there's a massive amount of money, it was mentioned before by a Northumberland Business Partnership, coming into Blythe, Camas, and it's right next to, like you say, it's right next to one of only 2 offshore wind testing centres in Europe, and that's it. But the conspiracy theory there is, right, America brings the money in here, invests, and then harvests our energy, and all of the profits go out of the country. So I think there's an environmental impact, but I think as a community, a Northeast community, I'm massively passionate about the Northeast as well, Nigel and Manila. I think we need to be careful about the fact that all of the money that's being spent there on that energy and is kept in the north as well, in terms of levelling up the north and everything else, because there is a conspiracy theory that says it will just, all the profit will go out of the country and they'll hoover up all of the energy as well. So
we don't want the region to be abused. We want it to be a partnership where we're getting as much out of it as they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think, just on a similar, obviously proud of the Northeast, but I'm proud of the country as well, and to some extent the Western world. There is also a threat from China. I know it gets a bit political, but I really do think that there is, the battle is between the West or America and those large organizations, which you may hate, for China, which is a totalitarian state, but the bills for compute power, which drives AI, is going to be fought and won by one of those sides. And we're going to have to live with the consequences of that. So more or less, if one or the other, every prompt you put in will be monitored, and they will know, or the AI or the machines will know exactly what we're doing. That's scary.
We'll try. Look, we've got some time, so I'll leave it on that one. How about yourself? Yeah. Anything more positive than that, or should we? Yeah, it's fair enough. Another question from the audience. Now we've got Graham Salt, who said one thing that's not covered much today is what AI means to ordinary people. So, amid all the world's challenges, how would you explain to an ordinary person, not necessarily someone who's here, on why AI matters?
I think so. You think about some of the use cases that can help you in your day-to-day life, and I'm quite sure the majority of us here in the room are using LLMs for just helping you write a plan or create a meal plan for the week, or a schedule, or what you're going to wear, or supporting decision making and work and so on. Some of the other use cases that I see in my place, it's helping drivers to become better drivers through the use of the data that we collect through telematics style products, the feedback that we provide to drivers, which to those individuals themselves, but for young drivers, it's helping their parents see what their behaviours are like and so on. I think that there's endless amounts of examples that we've heard today.
I think I know both of you have young children, and it was interesting talking about, what's their future going to be like? They're very young, and you speak about how they're actually introducing AI and awareness, if you like, already.
My daughter's in year 4, and she came home last week and talked to me about the topics of AI that they had been discussing in school that day, and how positive it is. And now I did counteract it with but sometimes AI can be used for bad, and I started to talk to her about deep fake and what that could be. But it's recognising it. And then I'm glad I did, because then she had a test on it yesterday, and one of the questions was, is this a real photograph? And she was able to say, no, that's a deep fake.
I guess on the young children, if we were talking about Bailey, who's 9, then the world would be full of fluffy cat pictures. That's pretty much what he uses ChatGPT for. I'm like, you're ruining the environment. And he's like, yeah, but more fluffy cats. In the real world, education. Well, do you want me to talk about education?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can maybe talk about education. I think already the schools are on top of this, at least from my view, from both my kids. So I've got 2 boys, 11 and 9, and they both have PSE, personal social education, where they're doing internet safety and everything else. I do see some of the AI stuff coming in, like internet safety. I think that's really important. But actually, I think the other thing is not closing it off to them as well. So both of my kids have supervised access to my ChatGPT counter, so I sit with them and they can type in prompts and see the sorts of things they get out of it. And they can learn the right times to use it and the right times not to use it.
Yeah, it's on education, more on higher education. I know in America there's a lot of skepticism about moving into higher education because they feel they don't need it, and a lot of it is behind, not using the latest tools. Here in the North, I know in Northumbria, for example, Andrew Monroe's here, who's head of the IT and development at Northumbria. They've all got Claude AI, Claude Code, or Claude whatever from Anthropic, which is it is an ethical organization compared to some of the others, so I very much approve of that. But it means that all the students are using it properly, and there's controls over how they use it, so they're going out into the world using it properly. It's also interesting working with the university there. We're looking to introduce a member of his team, which will be an AI member, but it'll be onboarded in the same way, and they'll have a look and face and the characters, just more as an experiment, see how that works. So, yeah, education and those organizations, I think in the UK, probably more than anywhere else in the world, are really keeping up to date or ahead or preparing as far as possible for what's happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of use cases for where AI can help in education. I mean, a good question, at least on the other side of that, is from Jack, and that's how best to identify use cases of AI in a business. So as the majority of users they can think of can be handled just by good code, for example. So we talk about educations for a business. What's the best use of like AI, you would think?
It's endless, really. I think the best thing to do is some experimentation with some guardrails and see what works best. Get that feedback, whether it be from your customer base or your colleagues. But we need to be embracing it, definitely, and not shying away from it. Governance is needed. And in one of the talks earlier, one of the presenters did make the point that so many organisations don't have those guardrails, don't have the governance. So you need to be ensuring that you're implementing that within your organisation, but you need to be embracing it. Don't try and block it for colleagues, because it will be used anyway. And if it's used outside of guardrails, then it's you're going to be subject to leaks and data being loaded into unsecure applications.
I mentioned before about making big things small and making small things big. It depends on the type of business, right? But I say start with a problem space. I'm a consultant inherently, from an engineering background, but a consultant. And there's so many CEOs now saying we need to do AI. And I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean do AI? So I think no matter what you pick, start with the problem space, identify a problem, and then figure out whether AI is the solution. Generally, AI is very, very good at making, like I say, big things small or small things big. So you've got, I'm going to put it out there, I'm a consultant, I'm paid to produce reports. Now, I could probably come up with a report on some technology assessment or some strategic plan as a page, an A4 page of bullet points. But if I give someone a page of A4 bullet points, paying the money they're paying, then they're going to go, well, hang on a minute, how have I got one A4 page as a result? So I elaborate, right? I use AI to elaborate, make things bigger. I do get rid of the Oxford commas and the dashes and the hyphens. Right? I'm putting out there full transparency. That's what people expect. Likewise, if I'm testing, I find it great for generating data sets for testing. So I know what my data looks like. I know what the structure is. And actually, in that particular case, hallucinations are actually a good thing, because I might get a text string with characters in where I expect a number in my test data. My system should handle that. So generating large data sets for tests is another use case I use. And I guess making things big, making things small. So I also been in financial service. That's how I know Manila for about 16 years, heavily regulated, and therefore actually trying to figure out, what the documents look like, right? These are like 400, 500 page documents, just getting AI to summarize some of those documents and check those against some of the procedures in place or some great use cases. But big things small, small things big, I guess, generally.
Yeah, AI has got a lot of potential to help us. The best way it seems to work is with us. That's why Microsoft calls it Copilot. It's something that should work alongside us. The key thing is not to replace a human, but to aid a human. I know as a developer, it's helped cut down a lot of time. I'm saving a lot of time that I can focus on other things. Doesn't mean I haven't got anything to do half the time. It means I can potentially get twice as much done, which is very great for a business. You got developers or anyone within your organization. It could be designers. It could be anyone,
That young people coming in.
Yeah,
you've been there a long time.
Exactly. I see people coming. I see there's a lot of reliance on like AI, the trust almost. That code looks fine to me. Ship it, and it's like having to tell them, just make sure you understand it. Right. That's the key point about when you're using AI to generate a bit of text or a bit of code. Is it needs to make sense? Does it make sense to you? And if it doesn't, it might not be the right thing. That's the key point. Like AI hasn't replaced that. I think a lot of people think it has. They can just take something. We used to do that back in, when Stack Overflow launched. That was something a lot of developers used. People used to copy and paste code just from there. So it's the same problem. It's just a lot easier to do that. So I think as the younger generation come through, they're going to use AI tools. They may have an advantage because they don't have all that sort of almost out of date knowledge and ways of working. They might be the ones who become the better developers because they know how to get the best out of AI.
Should show them how to use slide rules and blocks.
Oh yeah, should still keep with the old school things, but I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter and Mark and Manila and Nigel. That has been a very insightful and I think, topical discussion where I think you've raised some additional points and put some of the points from earlier in the day to bed. So yeah, I very much appreciate that. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tech Connect 2025 was a fantastic conference, and would like to thank Laura for allowing me to be part of such an amazing event, as well as thank my fellow panelists of Mark, Manila, and Nigel. Tech Connect 2025 in Newcastle upon Tyne, here in the northeast of England, was the first time I've ever been on stage for a paid conference, and really enjoyed the experience of hosting the panel, and to be able to share our discussion here on the RoguePlanetoid Podcast. Tech Connect 2025 also featured amazing talks from Lucy Batley, Peter Shaw, Joanna Montgomery, Peter Granger, Daniel Rowe, Hannah Underwood, along with a closing keynote from Professor Susie Imber, which you can read about at rogueplanetoid.com/articles/tech-connect-2025, or check out the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to the RoguePlanetoid Podcast, where each episode you'll find insights about Microsoft or related platforms and technology, along with so much more, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or at rogueplanetoid.com/podcasts. For the RoguePlanetoid Podcast, whether you are a beginner or an experienced professional or just interested in technology, keep current, keep coding. RoguePlanetoid Podcast is a production of Clearenton.